the name of the book might be the most controversial name of a book ever. God is Not Great, How Religion Spoils Everything, written by Christopher Hitchens, a British-born journalist who has adopted the United States of America as his home, and he's with us now on Nashville's Morning News with Ralph Bristol. Mr. Hitchens, welcome, sir.
Very good of you to ask me.
Thank you, sir. This is that's a pretty that's quite a premise for a book. Do you really believe that religion is responsible for most of what's wrong in this world?
Yes, and increasingly so. I mean, and the willingness of people to believe things on faith and without evidence. Yes. If you look at the world around us just now, take the two things at random. Iraq and Afghanistan are being threatened with immolation by people, by the parties of God who believe that they have the divinity on their side as they commit sociopathic mass murder. We have a pope who thinks that while AIDS may be bad, condoms are much worse, and who's just told us we should start teaching our children that they'll go to hell if they're bad again, a really evil doctrine that's psychologically damaged millions of children down the years. Cartoonists in Denmark can't do their job without death threats from the faithful. There are people in this country who want to teach pseudoscientific garbage to our children in the schools. The Jewish settlers on the West Bank hope to bring on the Messiah and Armageddon. It's all getting a bit much, and the success of my book, and of some predecessor volumes recently, is, I think, an indication that people are fed up and want to push back a bit and stand up for the First Amendment, for secularism, for the far better tradition of Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine.
But it seems to me that most of the things that you mentioned there, the things that are actually doing real harm, I don't think the Pope's pronouncement on birth control is doing any actual harm to people, but the religious fanaticism.
It's killing, it's murdering, I would say, tens of thousands of people in Africa by making it hard for them to get condoms to prevent a lethal infection from taking hold.
Well, the Pope can't prevent people from getting condoms. He may speak out against it, but he can't prevent it. He has no power over what happens in Africa.
I wish that were true. His church is extremely strong in Africa, politically as well as socially. Yes, it can do that, and has. It made it look, in a country like Ireland until very recently, it was almost physically impossible to get hold of contraception. That's within living memory. The church, when it wants to, can be extremely forceful.
When did you start developing this angst against religion, and what triggered all of this?
I'm not sure that angst is quite the right word. I mean, I never thought there was a word of truth in any of the so-called holy books. But I began to notice, if in the modern era, I suppose it dates from the time when, in 1989, when the Ayatollah Khomeini issued a fatwa against my friend Salman Rushdie, offered to murder him for money for the crime of writing a novel. And at that time, the Pope, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Chief Rabbi, all the other religious figures in the world said that they sympathized with Khomeini and not with Rushdie, because Rushdie, they thought, had committed blasphemy. I thought, well, this means we're going to have to restate all the old arguments for the Enlightenment again. I thought we could have taken it for granted that writing a novel wasn't as bad as offering to commit murder for pay. But I was wrong, wasn't I? According to religious morality, it was a blasphemy that was
but religious fanatic reality, which I mean, when religion is used as an excuse to murder people, of course it's dangerous. But that's religious fanaticism.
No,
that's not the kind of religion. That's not the kind of religion we see in our normal lives.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to keep disagreeing with you. That was mainstream. There's a more recent example, if you like, when the attempt was made to destroy the Danish economy because the Danish government refused to censor the cartoons in its papers. And random Danes were being attacked and lynched around the world, and embassies burned, and all the rest of it. The Vatican, to take just another example of mainstream religion, decided to make a statement of condemnation, and it condemned what? The cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
not the murderers, not the saboteurs, not the blackmailers, the cartoons. That's
okay. Speak to this.
So did the State Department, by the way, of our faith-based government.
Mr. Hitchens, speak to this. The effect of religion that I mainly see as I look around my neighborhood and my city and my country, is that people go to church on Sunday and they hear things that if they don't behave themselves, they're going to go to hell. And so therefore, they behave themselves for the most part. It's a disciplinary effect on people's lives, and it's a positive discipline on people's lives. Isn't that the main effect that religion, whether it's right or wrong, has on people's lives, and isn't that positive?
I think it's positively immoral to teach morality by means of lies and threats. And I must say,
but you don't know it's a lie.
It sounds as if your friends are very suggestible if they believe that if they don't do what the preacher says, they're going to go to hell.
It's not just my friends; it's the vast majority of Americans.
I've never met anyone who's that credulous.
Chris, you don't know you believe it's a lie, but you don't know that it's a lie.
I positively know it's a man-made invention. It's nothing but that.
How can you be so sure? How can you be so sure about that?
Well, excuse me, I think the burden of proof is on the person who believes in hell.
No, the burden of proof is on the person.
At all.
Sir,
and you've never been able to come up with an idea of heaven either.
With respect, the burden of proof is on the person who is claiming that religion is responsible for all of the evil in the world.
Well, it depends a bit on one's definition of evil. I say it's evil to lie and coerce, which is what you've just said your church is doing. I don't require to be lied to and threatened in order to lead an ethical life, and I don't expect that anyone would listen to me on the basis of lies and threats either. What you're describing is something positively immoral. It's just you've got too used to it.
Well, it might be immoral if it were absolutely not true, and everybody knew it were not true. But the people who are teaching this, they absolutely believe it is true, and the people that they're talking to believe it is true. And it's not the only, but it is one of the controlling influences on their lives.
They have that in common with every Muslim fanatic in Afghanistan. That's exactly what they preach, and exactly.
Except they're not going out and murdering people. In fact, they are trying to prevent people from being murdered. They're trying to prevent unborn babies from being murdered on the basis of religion. No,
I'm sorry, I didn't get the last. I didn't quite get
I said religion is responsible for a movement in this country to try to prevent unborn babies from being murdered. Do you think that's a negative thing too?
No, I personally am extremely squeamish about abortion. There's a long section in my book where I say that if the church didn't take the ridiculous position that, for example, an intrauterine device was a murder weapon. And that if the Catholic Church didn't take the view that contraception was the moral equivalent of abortion, then the position of defending the rights of the unborn would be morally, to me, pretty much impregnable one. I think it's to the credit of the believers that they do that. I think it's to the credit of the believers that they do all kinds of things. But I can't say it's to their credit if I take you at your face value and say they do this because they're being lied to and threatened. That's a terrible motive.
Okay. Christopher Hitchens, and the name of the book is God is Not Great, How Religion Spoils Everything. Thank you, sir, for joining us here on Nashville's Morning News.
That was very good of you to ask me.